Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first day of spring and the 2025 user group meeting Spark Reports Committee. I am happy to introduce the chair of the committee, Natalie Arnold, the assistant director at Lower Macungie Library. Thank you, Natalie.
Thanks, Kat. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us this morning. Just a quick thank you to those who are our panelists today. We're going to be talking about resource sharing and how some libraries are using reports in relation to that. So just a quick intro, we have Brant Enzer from Adams County Library System, the Assistant Executive Director, Mark Sullivan, who is the Executive Director at Southern Lehigh Public Library, and Heather Linskold, the District Library Consultant, Altoona Area Public Library and County Coordinator of Blair County Library System. So thank you guys for being here today. And also want to mention Elizabeth Davis, who is the reports guru, all knower of reports. So I want to give her the floor first if she has anything she'd like to discuss before we start.
Sure. I just wanted to remind everyone that the reports module will be upgrading on March 24th in the morning. So if you have not attended the veteran training that we had yesterday, there will be another training going a little bit deeper, full reporter on March 26th at 2. We'll put a link in the chat for those of you who wish to attend. And it'll be geared more for people who have not used reports at all. So a little bit more detailed. We have a lot of documentation on the support pages for the new reporter. So hopefully, well, yes, new reporter. Some of you had some experience when we migrated or upgraded in November, but now we're going back. And so just a lot of aesthetic changes. So just wanted to make sure everyone is up to date on that. I think there was something else I was supposed to mention, Natalie. Oh, examples of reports, but we'll get to that after everyone talks.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. All right, Brant, if you're ready to go, I'll stop sharing my screen and let you take over.
Well, thank you. And I'm going to share my screen in a moment to show you what I'm looking at here. As soon as I get my computer to agree. There we go. So as a bit of background on our resource sharing, we have resource shared with York County, who's in our district, York and Adams, the share district. And for as long as I can remember. But we did it through 2 different ILSs and about 4 different ways over the years of doing it. And then when we found ourselves on the same ILS, Spark, we were like, there has to be a better way to do this, a quicker way, a more efficient way, a less staff intensive way. And Katie said, why don't you let Spark do the work? And we're like, why didn't we think of that? I blame the pandemic, though, because it was right after we were back from the pandemic and nobody was thinking straight. Because we had thought about it before, but had never taken any action on it. So last year was our first full year, 2024, with doing a cooperative agreement with York County to use Spark as the agent for collaboration. And I will say we did not fully integrate our catalogs, our records, but the staff can put district loan requests through with a certain option on our staff logins that allows us to order the book from York County, and then Spark does the rest. It's more complicated than that, but that's the general easy version. So last year, like I said, we started in September of 2023, and we noticed an efficiency pretty much right away. We were almost to the point of hiring an assistant to our ILL person here in Adams County, because the work was just getting too much. And that was one of the things that helped eliminate that need. So we ended up probably saving money in the long run. But I didn't notice, speaking of the reports part of it, I really wasn't keeping track of the reports and wasn't using it for anything other than qualitative reasoning, until we had to do the state report this year. And I had to get that number together for how many we sent over there and how many we requested from them. And it ended up being quite a number. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to share the screen now with the report in it. There it is. Can you see it on the screen now? Okay.
Yep.
So this is a very basic report. It's the that I use to get the ILLs off of it, but it's the basic report we use every month for circulation. So it's the CIRC count by shelving location report. And we have to do the circulating library one because all of our books are owned by the same organization. We have 6 branches, but 1 administrative unit. And so the only way we can tell which branch is doing what is by using the circulating modifier. And then this is the report that came up showing each branch for all 12 months of 2024. And then I obviously know what our shelving locations are here in Adams County and have used York counties long enough now to realize what their shelving locations are. So I just went through here and marked in the blue that you see the ones that are York County are in blue. And then a little later on in the ones that are in white are the Adams County ones. And then all of our Access PA ones go into, and sorry that we have a lot of shelving locations. Stacks. Stacks is our Access PA and WorldCat numbers. We use Stacks because we weren't using Stacks for anything else. That's not a very good reason, but it was a unused available shelving location in our system. And so that's what we used. And now we can't change it because everybody would be confused. So after doing the math for the state report, which I have to get back over here to the end. There we go. We had received 10,836 items from York County, and we sent over a bit smaller number, but not very much smaller number. The 10,836, if memory serves, is about 2,000 to 3,000 more than we used to get from York County the old way. And there's some reasons for that, because if it's a book with the whole list that the staff placed, then York County holds will fill the request if need be, as long as the book is 6 months old or older. So we saw some of that, but I think staff were just using it and it was just a more convenient way of doing it. So that's really the report I wanted to show, was a very simple report. And if we have time, I can go back and show the ILLs out, because that report looked totally different, but it was still able to show us the items Adams County owned that went to York. Similarly. So Natalie, I'll just send it back to you unless anybody has any questions or needs me to explain anything better. But my report was simple. And we just happened to need it because of the state report. And we found out, oh, we have all this information we didn't know we had or needed for that matter.
Thanks, Brant. Does anyone have any questions on that? Pause for a few seconds.
All right, I'll stop sharing my screen then.
Okay. And then that's a good segue, I think, to pass it over to Mark Sullivan. Let's see. Mark, if you're there, you want to
I'm unmuted.
take over?
Right?
Perfect.
And then
You're good.
Let me see if I can. What if I just want to share my entire screen? I'm really not good at this.
You click the share button at the bottom, right?
Right?
And then click the screen that you're seeing. There's like multiple. There you go. Good.
Okay, and that should allow me. Okay, good.
Yep.
All right. So just as a caveat, I'm going to be zipping through my report minutes. I go through a lot of calisthenics and get myself confused every once in a while. So don't focus on the sausage making, and we'll focus on the results. But that being said, I am with the Lehigh Carbon Library Cooperative, referred to as LECAR in Spark. We encompass 11 of the 12 libraries in the Allentown district. We're not a system, but we act like one. I call us a voluntary system with a small s. We share a common card, and we share as many common policies and procedures as I could get everybody to agree to. And I think we give our patrons a pretty seamless experience across the cooperative. We started resource sharing in February 2019. I was the district consultant, and I wanted a report that showed how many items were shared between our libraries, mainly to gauge the success of our consortium and to have numbers we could share with our boards and municipalities to highlight that success. And I believe Mary Ann Kometz from Parkland actually created the report originally that I use. In April 2024, at the prodding of Easton Library, the LECAR libraries expanded our resource sharing to include Allentown Library and most of the Spark libraries of Bethlehem and Easton districts. This expanded arrangement is only for resource sharing. There's no expansion of the common card or common policies. Referred to in Spark now as the multi-district Lehigh Valley Pocono, or by Elizabeth in her best mafioso voice as the family. We are now resource sharing over 3 districts and 4 counties. In January 2025, Nazareth Library came on board, and we expect Northampton Library to come on board sometime later this year, which will bring us to a total of 31 libraries and branches. So that is a lot of trading back and forth. And I'm going to briefly go over how I use this report to get 3 tiers of stats that are relevant to the LECAR libraries in particular. And
hey, Mark, can I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah.
I just did this math the other day because somebody on my board asked me.
Mhm.
And the 1.3 million items that are available to folks in that resource sharing group make it the 2nd largest effective collection size in Pennsylvania.
Well, damn, Daniel. Who knew?
So I thought that's some exciting math.
Well, you'll see it at my last screen will show how many items are going back and forth in the end. But the 3 tiers of information that I get from this report are: number 1, the total number of items our drivers handle; number 2, how many individual titles are transited between LECAR libraries and the greater family; and 3, how many individual titles are transited just among the LECAR libraries, which is what we used to only worry about until April 2024. So I don't actually care about the numbers for the family as a whole. I only care about the numbers that affect the LECAR libraries. So I have to do a lot of finagling with this report to filter out the stuff that I don't need. To begin with, to run the report, I recommend cloning in templates and Pales Davis, resource sharing, and LCLC Transits Monthly. Now, there's nothing intrinsically LCLC or LECAR about this report. Anybody can use this report. You could also use the LCLC Transits System Names Monthly if that suits your needs. For me, I found that I just need more granularity in my numbers, and so I use the other one. So when you run this report, you do all the normal stuff. The pivot column is going to be source library name. You choose the month, and you choose all your libraries at the individual library level, not at the system level. And so add the other 28 libraries, and the report you end up getting is this 700 lines long.
Oh, wait, we're not seeing that one. Can you share?
Oh, okay, let's see. How do I do that? New share.
Yep. There should be an option like the first row should be like full entire screen. And then the second, yeah, there we go.
There now? Okay, so
Yep,
maybe
I see your whole screen now.
I think I should be good now. So does it switch? Does it switch to another one?
Yep, we're good. We're seeing it. We see once we see your Windows toolbar, that's a good indicator that we're seeing your entire screen.
Good. Okay, so this is the initial report. And you'll see at the bottom here, total of 25,561. Now that is the number. I'll get myself lost. Hold on a second. Yes. So this is the total number of items that have that transited in February among all 3 districts, the entire consortium. Now, like I said, I don't care about that number in particular. I don't care if what Allentown and Bethlehem and Easton are trading amongst themselves because they're not part of our LECAR consortium. So I only care about my district drivers. So I have to clean up this report in 2 steps. And this is, let's see. Okay, this is the one I wanted, actually. I'm sorry. Things are going to pot. Let me just make sure what I got here. Yeah, this should be it. So I do this in 2 steps, cleaning up this report just to find out my district stats. Number 1, I delete any libraries that aren't part of our consortium. I don't know how some of these libraries get on the list, but you delete those. And then I also delete all the libraries that are not part of, let me rephrase this. And I delete the transits between non-Lehigh Carbon libraries like Easton and Allentown, and with the exception of lines that have the destination library and owning library, it's the same. So I can delete these. I know why I was playing around earlier. That's just why it doesn't look right. And I get down to the bottom, and then it's going to, I'm not even going to bother there. This brings it down to 13,124 items. And that's the total number of items that my drivers handled in February. Now, to get to the second tier of numbers, which is the total number of individual items that transited to fulfill holds between Lehigh Carbon libraries plus between LECAR libraries and the other family libraries, but not including items that have been returned to their home library, I delete all the rows where the destination library and owning library are the same. And that brings me down to, I think if this is done correctly, 5,920. Now that's the number of items that had transited between Lehigh Carbon Libraries and all of their friends, including the other Lehigh Carbon Libraries. Now, the only flaw in this particular step is that some of these items returning home may be returning to fulfill a hold as opposed to going back on the shelf, but I'm pretending that that number isn't very big and we're just ignoring that. And the third tier, to get the total number of items that had transited to fulfill a hold only between Lehigh Carbon Libraries, I delete the rows. Let's see where. I delete the rows in both columns A and column B that are not part of LECAR libraries. So I would delete Bangor and Barrett on this side and Bethlehem, and I'd do all the same on the other side. And that ends up giving me, I believe, if I did it right again, oops, that gives me this final screen, which has 3,713 items. So again, all these numbers I'm throwing at you, this is the end result that I'm looking at. Keeping track of all of the items that transited since we started resource sharing. So the summary of it here is that in addition to showing that the resource sharing is objectively succeeding, as you can see in column C, how the number of items that the delivery drivers touch has gone up and up and up over the years, and then skyrocketed in April of 2024 when we started sharing with all the other libraries. I can gain some insights from all of this. Number one, how much work are our drivers doing? With the advent of this resource sharing, here's the year-to-year date, yearly data. The drivers handled 43% more items in 2024 over the previous year. And this information directly helped inform our decision to devote $5,000 more in district funds to drivers' wages for the extra hours the work has added. There is a proximity algorithm in place, and we can see that that is working. And this is the number of holds filled by LECAR libraries amongst themselves. And it also, so around 2/3 of the holds from month to month are filled in-house, so to speak. And this also, in my opinion, shows that cooperative collection development is working, which should be a part of any resource sharing group. And we now have a benchmark here of the 2/3 number. So I think over time, if that number starts trending lower, that will say something about the LECAR libraries and whether we have to address our own collection development needs. And not get too reliant on outside sources. But having said that, nonetheless, there's obviously a value to having the extended family, as 1/3 of the holds are fulfilled from outside LECAR. But most importantly, recently at least, it shows that the Lehigh, all those 1/3 worth of holds being filled outside of LECAR all used to be fulfilled through ILL. And for example, in the second quarter of 2023, our district shipped 1,244 ILLs. In the second quarter of 2024, we shipped 648, a 48% decrease, which allowed us to go down 2 full tiers in the IDS fee schedule, and we saved $13,200 in district funds, which is real money. So my overall takeaway here is to think about the stats that you would really like to see for your resource sharing arrangement, and if you're willing to do the extra work to glean those stats out of a bigger sea of information, I think you can get meaningful numbers that lead you to actionable items to measure and increase your success. So that's it.
That's great, Mark. Thank you so much. Any questions for Mark? That was a lot of data, but really valuable. info that gets pulled out of that. So
That's so cool that you measured the percentage of, you know, in system versus your outside systems. So that's really good. I don't think we talked about that when we were chatting. So I think that's a really impressive number. And then your collective cooperative collection development also, you know, making sure everyone kind of has the materials that you could borrow is really important. So
Yeah, I try, you know, I got into the habit of thinking big picture, trying to think of statistics that would apply and be interesting to each of the individual libraries in our district, and try and selling the idea as a whole to everybody, whether it be the individual libraries or the municipalities and boards.
mhm. Do you track to see who's a net lender versus a net borrower, or are you just looking at it as the system?
I do not look at that, but I had anecdotally over the years, I was able to tell that, and
Okay.
part of it I actually figured out was the libraries that for whatever reason run their pull lists 15 times a day. Well, you're going to be a net exporter, you know, as opposed to the ones that just run it once a day. But
Thank you.
okay, if there aren't any questions right now, I'll have Heather, are you ready?
Yes, and I will not be sharing my
right.
screen today.
Okay.
So good morning. I'm Heather Linskold. I am the district consultant for the Altoona District Libraries. So my district consists of the Blair County Library System, which is 8 independent libraries with their own boards. The Bedford County Library System, which is 3 independent libraries and 1 branch. And the Huntingdon County Library, which is just its own independent library in Huntingdon County. So for resource sharing, we resource share across our entire district. Plus, we also, Blair County Library System resource shares with Lackawanna County and Cambria County. And the Bedford County Library System also resource shares with Somerset County. So we have a really interesting mix of, a really interesting mix of resource sharing. Our district delivery is taken around by, we actually pay the local intermediate unit here in Altoona to do our district delivery that goes to Blair, Bedford, and Huntingdon counties. They are also nice enough to go to Cambria County for us and take those things because they are already delivering to schools in Cambria County. So it's just like an extra box for them to take for us. The resource sharing that we do with Lackawanna County is through IDS, so we ship it by UPS a couple of times a week. And then the Bedford County's resource sharing with Somerset County is done by the Bedford County Library's own delivery van. So we have a mix of different things going on with our resource sharing. As the district consultant, I think the main report I use has already been discussed by both Mark and Brant. I every year have to figure out how many things went out and came in for the annual report. So they have both shown you how they run those reports already. The first year that I did it though, and Katie Martin, who is the director of PAILS here, used to be in this chair. And I don't know that we had ever discussed it, but when I first started running that report, I was amazed to see that a lot of my smaller libraries were net lenders, which I thought was really interesting. And I'm maybe going to blow up our spot a little bit this way, but I think sometimes it's because some of our smaller libraries don't weed as much, or on a positive note, also value some local history stuff and some really obscure things that other libraries may not. So bigger libraries like Lackawanna may be able to find some really obscure things from some of the Blair County Library System libraries for a number of different reasons. The other report that I have lately had to start using is a report that lists items by copy status. I think that's the easiest way to search for it in the reporter. UPS has lately been very horrible about the way they treat our packages. And regardless of how much tape we put on a package or how heavy duty we make it, a lot of boxes are showing up both in Lackawanna and the Blair County Library here in Altoona entirely ripped open, and we don't know if things have fallen out. We don't know if things are missing. So we've started kind of heavily using a report that shows us what has been in transit since a certain date, so we can tell whether or not those things are actually missing or have not been checked in someplace but got there. And I've also started using that report more often just to make sure things are getting checked in when they get to their different respective places, because sometimes we have an item that says in transit for a while and then we find it in the library because it just hasn't been checked in since it came back. And when it shows in transit, people think it's not here. So I've started using that report pretty frequently. And then the last report I started using more frequently a couple of years ago, when we saw the significant increase in the cost of our interdelivery system IDS through UPS, we actually started looking at if we're borrowing the same things over and over from other libraries like Lackawanna that have to ship them, or even within our own libraries, we started to use a report to show that, so we could decide if we wanted to purchase things rather than asking for them, just to try to save everybody's costs on IDS. That has been a group effort, as Mark Sullivan knows, to try to figure that stuff out. So those are the three major reports that I use all the time for resource sharing.
Thanks, Heather. Any questions for Heather?
I think, oh, go ahead, Terry.
You sure?
Yeah.
What report, what's the place and name would I find the report that you use to find which items are going out that we're requesting frequently or that we're going out frequently?
I don't have it pulled up, but it's a list. It's an actual list instead of just the count of items that are transiting. Elizabeth, I don't know if you have. I didn't look it up. I didn't do any of this.
Is it? There's one in, here, I'll share my screen.
Okay, thank you.
So under username Pales Davis, there's a whole folder for resource sharing, and there's one
It is
called
one of those, yeah. Yep.
resource sharing
yep.
collection
Yep,
use.
that's it.
There, I'll make it a lot bigger.
Thank you.
It's this one, and you can clone it, and if you run it, you need to, you would, name it, set your circulation date range, and then the owning library. So so this one is telling you how many items are checked out at another library. So if you wanted, you could do all of your resource sharing partners if you wanted to get really, really big. And then see what titles. No, wait, is this the right one,
Oh,
Heather?
maybe it's not, because that one's just the count. There's one
this
that
is a
actually
count.
lists them.
Okay, 1 second. No.
Is the materials borrowed from another library system?
Yes, probably.
Yeah, that is yeah.
The one with the very obvious name. Sorry. Materials borrowed
Yep.
from another library
There's
system.
the list of titles. Yes, that's the one.
Yeah.
Mm.
It says the title, the author, the publication year, who owns it, the
Yep.
circulation modifier, and this you would do it for a whole year, and you would select the libraries that you're borrowing from.
Yep.
And then your library on the first one, and then all the libraries that you're borrowing materials from. So Terry, you would pick Myersdale here in this first one, and then everyone else in Somerset, Mary S. B. Secker, and then the Bedford libraries on this second one. And then you'll see the items that you're getting.
And when I started running it, I actually looked at who we were borrowing from the most and started with that just to see, and then kind of worked my way down. So I wasn't looking at the whole thing all at once.
Does that help, Terry?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm wondering, Elizabeth, could you modify this report, not just like list the titles, but call numbers as well? Because one thing I want to do is look at what we're borrowing from other libraries, kind of see if there's gaps in our, like say nonfiction collection, to see if we're always borrowing from a particular call number section. Maybe that would be helpful for us in terms of what we need to focus more on.
Yeah.
So would that be a good report to just modify, adding in?
I'll do
Okay.
it now, but so for this one, I'm just gonna clone it, and you'll see like the title, the author, the publication year. You can see the path on the left. So I'm going cold transit, and then I'm going to transited copy or transited item. I love when it confuses item and copy all the time. And then call number, and you can just add the call number label here. And you could bump it up a little bit if you want. So it's in with the other items. Go up one more. So yeah, that would be how I would add it. Not a lot of libraries use prefixes and suffixes, but I know York does. So Brant, if you need to know if it's an adult title or a juvenile title, if you were to use this, you would want to add the prefix and the prefix field at least. They structure their call numbers a little differently. So I will add this with call numbers. And that'll be in the folder if you want to use it today.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah. You could also do it with shelving locations, but then that gets a little messy because is it like if you use nonfiction for everything, it's kind of like, okay, cool. All nonfiction. It's not very detailed. So yeah, there's other reports in here as well. Under resource sharing. There's the circulations by checkout library, by owning library, so you can see how many items that you own that are checked out somewhere else. You can see that. I don't look at this one as often because we really want to look at transits for holds, because yeah, you could check it out, but what if the patron never picks it up? You still want to get credit for items that you put in the work to go get off the shelf and send to the library. And then we have F13 and 14, and that's the transits for items you lent or borrowed from another Spark library. These are just the annual report ones. So I have to fix these so that they don't only send for 1 year, but yeah. And then marks 2 for the transit monthlies. These are just straight up transits. It's physically moving items. If you need to know a thing that we really haven't talked about in depthly is if libraries are sending funds for lost or damaged items. This is a report that could help you look and see how many libraries have accepted payment on a lost item that your library technically owns. So if you wanted to track that, some libraries start tracking that when they start a resource sharing project, and then after a year reevaluate and say, okay, in this year we sent you this much money, and you sent us this much money, and it's basically within like $50. So like they just scrap it and they're just like, okay, it's a minor loss in funds, but it's not really worth the amount of time and effort to do the math and then cut the check. It's just easier to keep an eye on it, but you don't have to all the time. And then here are the two so if you just want the items, and then we modified this one for the call number. Collection use is circulation totals by checkout library and permission group and distinct count of patrons. So if you wanted to see like how many unique patrons checked out a specific number of things on a specific shelving location in a certain permission group, kind of granular. And then this one is who is requesting stuff. I got real creative with the name on that one. This is a breakdown of if to see if staff are requesting placing more holds than patrons. So that was a very, I think, a very unique use case. But if you're interested to see if your staff place more holds than patrons, that is one way to do it. That one. We also have some ILL reports that could, in theory, the book club one is probably a good one if you're in a resource sharing group to see how many copies of a title you folks have. So like if you need a book copy, like a copy count of like 10, I need 10 books, but do we have 10 within our resource sharing group? This one will help you, and it'll give you the title and how many copies are on that. That's a good one. So those are the ones that I have like specifically earmarked for ILL or resource sharing, but that doesn't mean you like there's a lot in the circulation reports folders. I'm trying to be a little bit more intentional about how I organize them. So if you need things that are items that are currently checked out, you could look at the open circulations. If you want to see just a count of things, there's ones just on count. There's ones that are based on circulation modifier or something about the cataloging element of it. If it's patron based or shelving location based. So, and these are more recent circulation, so within the last 18 months. If you need anything more historic than that, we have a folder for historic circ. So anything 18 months or older. But that doesn't mean that's the only reports. If you need anything in particular, you can always email either the reports list to see if somebody else has it, or you can email us at support and we will happily work with you to build a template that we can share with you and you can use for your needs. It may have a fun name like who's borrowing my stuff, or it'll be very specific, or just this one's for Natalie. Depends on how busy I am that day.
You know, if I can say something, I think an unintended consequence of choosing the three of us in particular to present today really has shown how Spark can be sort of a nesting doll, that we have resource sharing arrangements within resource sharing arrangements, sometimes within even further, as Heather's opening comments kind of showed. And that's a great thing about Spark, even though it's probably a bit of a nightmare for Katie and Elizabeth doing all the policies on your end. But I think it just shows that there is a way to get statistics from any particular part of that nest if you want, in any particular part of the relationship. The stats are there, and you may have to dig and just think a little creatively, but you know, you can get those stats out of the greater clutter.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like the reporter is really robust and has a lot of abilities, but it can only give you the numbers. Like you have to make those connections and look through the data and do a little creative, not creative thinking, but constructive, you know, framing of the info you have. So I know a lot of people get discouraged with the reporter because it doesn't give them instantaneously the thing they need, but it's there. You just sometimes need to dig a little. Excel is your friend. Tables are your friend. Love a pivot table. That'll be my closing remark.
Natalie, if I could add one more thing to what I said earlier that I forgot until I looked at my list of things to talk about, and I think it's important. So one of the things we wanted to relate today was how do we use these reports for selecting materials, buying more copies, seeing what's going in between branches. And in Adams County here, we have to keep, for the state requirement, around 145,000 items between the 6 branches. And we are literally, pretty much that is our shelving capacity. So we are basically a one in, one out situation here. So what we use York County is a much bigger county with more branches and therefore needing a bigger collection size. So we use a lot of, when we're weeding, the things we're looking at weeding are, and we do check sometimes, oh, York County has this, so we can save the shelf space. Or we're missing 2 parts of this series, but York County has it, so we'll get rid of this. The other report that we use is what we call the holds ratio report, and I, for the life of me, cannot remember what the name of the report is. Although I can look that up. And basically that tells us for the things we own in our county, when it hits a 6 hold to 1 copy ratio, it comes up on that report. And we use that in basically every section of the library in order to get more of the same kind of a copy of the same material in. There are some authors, obviously, in fiction and in children's that we get multiple copies of to start with because we know we're going to need X number of copies. But for the things that are nonfiction and first-time authors and whatever the Oprah book of the month is that we don't know about, we use that to help with our ordering to keep the hold ratios down so our patrons get it faster. But also, it's a good way to try to have more available for people because we're not buying 7 copies of every book. But also to make sure we're getting the things that people want as well, which is important. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I think it's one of the, and it pulls, it's an automatic pull for us. So I get it in my email every other week and it's updated. So once you set it and forget it, it's easy to use. Okay, once Elizabeth sets it, and then we forget it because we set it for a
Yeah, I think the one I put in the chat what I thought it was, but now that I'm thinking about it a little bit longer, I think you use this one. It's called Hopeless Holds, but it's not, they're not hopeless. They're just,
hold on, let me look. I'm just gotten into. No, it's
So
called, oh, here's a original name for you. Bi-weekly 6 to 1 hold ratio alert report.
that's the, yeah, I think the template is either the active holds across the system or it's the hopeless holds with copy counts instead.
Yeah, and it is not, it's not the world's most perfect report because it is based on the item. So once you buy 2nd and 3rd copies, it might still show up on the report because it's showing that 1 copy ratio. But we do it every 2 weeks, so you basically know whether it's been ordered or not to take it off the list. Yeah, I'm assuming that's what I saved it as when I saved it, when I cloned it.
We also use that report as well, Brant. It's the one that Elizabeth put into the chat. I like to sort it by like holds to copy ratio, something like that. So it'll say like if you own more than 1 copy, like how many copies, and then it'll do the math for you to see like you have 14 holds, but you have 2 copies. Like, you know, it's still, I always throw the highest holds ratio to the top. So I don't know if the report you're running has that. Let me see if I could find it real quick and I can. Yeah,
You know, it's
You might-
funny because we said it so long ago. That was, I think, the first report we set up in the system when we moved it to Spark in 2019. Because we had it in our old system and used it so much that the ordering the ordering people here would just not be able to continue working without it. That was like the one thing. Now, the name of the report that I see from the cloned report, and it might be versions of the same thing, I don't know, is it's holds copy ratio purchase alert report. And it's a web staff report, so I don't know if that's specific to just the hold ratio part of it, or if it is just a renamed version of the original report that you were talking about. That hopeless holds with copy counts and statuses. Elizabeth, I think we do use that for our hopeless holds in between systems, but I'm not sure it's the ratio part of it is in that one.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think we were working on two reports around the same time, so they're kind of
Yes.
melding in my brain. But yes, there are ways to do copy count versus the ratio of holds to a copy count.
And that, I mean, it's
Yeah.
important in our system to do that because, like I said, we have 6 branches, but we consider it one catalog and one set of books. So with our deliveries 5 days a week, our patrons are very used to putting things on hold and getting them on delivered in. So that's not a big concern for us as it might be in some other places.
Yeah, it also, the active hold count, the one that we use, it also, like, just for example, do you mind if I share my screen? Because I have, okay, let me share real quick. It'll be
You're
easier to
you're
explain.
leading the meeting, so you can do whatever you want.
Let me bring it up here. There we go. So this is what I like to, this column here.
Yep, that's what ours looks like.
Yeah, and then, yeah, exactly. So then I'll just go up, custom sort by that with largest, smallest. So it helps to see obviously what titles have the highest holds. This week, for example, I'm like, why is this so high with one copy? So I looked in, and it also helped realize that issues with Baker and Taylor, like we just haven't even received this copy yet. And then, you know, it helps with that to see what's back ordered, delayed, something like that. So I just went in and ordered a couple copies through Amazon. So it goes, you know, not only with what's the highest hold, but also with some maybe delivery issues as well. Like, so yeah,
I get tripped up on the book clubs because we borrow a lot of copies from the other branches that were York County, and so we do have to be, I look each one up to make sure the ratio is still 6-1, because like I said, sometimes it will appear on there because you've ordered another copy, it's just not in yet.
right.
And
Yeah, and that's, yep.
and then I get rid of the book club ones too. Because obviously there's a reason there's a hold ratio for that one.
We use the same ratio, 6-1. I'm curious if other libraries
We did,
have a
yeah,
higher, lower.
our physical was 6-1, and our e-content was 10-1 because it was more expensive. But we made about halfway through the year last year the decision that we were going to count e-content the same as physical. So that is now 6-1 as well. And we had to throw more money at it, but I think the patrons are happier.
Yeah, we try to keep our e-content to 10-1, but it's quite difficult budget-wise to do so, unfortunately. anyone else have any comments or questions? If not, we are coming up on time, so we're all set. Then we can, I guess, wrap up the meeting.
Okay, sounds good. I will stop the recording.
Okay.